Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. We are post All-Star Week. Second half's officially underway. That's pretty crazy, but I think we have a lot to talk about, a lot of good things to talk about because it was another solid All-Star Week. Actually, kind of decent.
Yeah.
Like, in the sense that, there was some drama at the end, which is very good. The home run derby delivered as always. It was a good All-Star Week.
Yeah, solid All-Star Week at hand. Good moments, in the home run derby, and as you mentioned, in the All-Star game, both surrounding Julio Rodriguez. Not that Julio Rodriguez won, but for the second year in a row, he had an amazing round, and unfortunately was not able to get it done overall, but did put on a show with the most home runs in a home run derby ever. But it happened to be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. who took it, who did not have more than 30 in a round, but ultimately he gets the victory.
Yeah, I mean the night I think was the single highlight of the night was Julio Rodriguez in the first round hitting 41 home runs. He was just on a continuous run the entire time, and he was crushing the ball too. It wasn't like, they were kind of sneaking out. Like he was dominating the entire time, and yeah, unfortunately, it just didn't pick up in the second round, but it was awesome.
Yeah, and it's very cool that a lot of that for much of the broadcast they have the immediate exit velocity and launch angle numbers like off the bat. So, for nerds like us, we can kind of immediately tell when it's gone. And with Rodriguez, it was like
Yep.
107 miles per hour, 29 degrees. It was, 109,
I
25
That's
degrees.
literally the way I was watching it. Was just looking at the metrics and being like, okay, that's gone. Okay, that's gone. Oh, 97, like 97 and 32, that might get out, probably not.
Yep.
Like being able to instantly tell based on the metrics. Okay, yeah, no, that one's gone pretty much every time.
Right. Yeah, it was fun. It was cool because so it's easy to lose track with how frequent they're swinging because obviously that initial rule where you have to wait till it lands, that's pretty much fully abandoned by now. But
Mm-hmm.
but uh but yeah,
Did you
with
see how quickly Randy was swinging, by the way,
it
when
was
he was going in like
crazy.
the second round?
It was very
And
impressive.
he was in like constant motion.
Right. Yeah, 100%. It was just he never really stopped. And it kind of shows you that much of the home run derby is like cardiovascular capability. Like you can
Yeah,
easily
no, it
burn
absolutely
out.
is.
You can easily burn out.
Mhm. Ultimately, the night did belong to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He did win the home run derby out of the number 6 seed. Surprising based on seeding, not surprising based on who it is. I think a lot of people, myself included, predicted Vladimir Guerrero Jr. would win the derby. He was kind of owed one after 2019. I think Julio is kind of owed one now. Um, it's in Texas next year, which, another park that I think is relatively equal to how it plays the righties and lefties. So, and I'm sure he'll be in it. I'm sure Adolis Garcia will be back in it.
Right,
Um,
right.
yeah,
Um,
Vladimir Guerrero Jr. though, his dad won the home run derby in 2007. He attended the home run derby with his dad as a kid. There are plenty of pictures of him at like old All-Star games. With his dad as a member of the Angels. Um, and to see him grow up and kind of do it on his own, I think that was pretty cool.
yeah, absolutely. Like what as soon as Vlad Guerrero Jr., stepped onto the MLB field, there's plenty of potential for cool moments like this, and it's very cool that it's delivered, especially this early. We thought there's a possibility it was going to be delivered, in 2019, which would have been even crazier. But it's almost better now that Vladdy Jr.'s more established and has been in the MLB for a few years now and has a MVP runner up under his belt. Like, that's very cool. And yeah, shout out to you for almost fully predicting this thing. You had
Yeah,
you had Guerrero and Rosarena in the finals, correct? Yeah, the only
I
thing,
did. I only got two things wrong. I had Adley Rutschman beating Luis Robert, which looking back, I'm not even mad about being wrong on that one because I think a lot of people saw Adley's performance and was like, yeah, I could see him taking down Robert, but Robert happened to do even better. And then I took Pete Alonso over Julio. That was the one where I probably could have been right if I thought about it a little more. Um, yeah, Julio hit 41 in his home park. I don't know why I doubted him in his own park. I just thought that Pete would want revenge after last year. Uh, and he got knocked out in the first round.
yeah, right. And by the way, I mean, the guy the guy throwing to him was, is not someone that had
No,
thrown to him in the derbies that he won. And it was like he was like
it
painting
was
the outside
showing.
corner.
Yeah, dude, he had Pete trying to like I mean, going the other way just isn't really a thing in the home run derby. So it's not like, outside pitch, go the other way. He was trying to take it out of the ballpark on like, yeah, like literally the low outside corner.
Right. It was it was not the best. And yeah, I mean, a lot of home run derby performance unfortunately
Yeah.
does have to do with the performance of the batting practice pitcher. Um,
There's got to be some sort of like pitching machine out there that has like the precision to go for the exact same spot every single time and have like guys pick where they want it, right? Like that
yeah, I
has to
think so.
exist.
Yeah.
Like maybe
Yeah.
it wouldn't be perfect every time, but like if it's throwing in like, if Pete wants it like high and inside and it's throwing there 70% of the time, like that has to exist, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I just know personally, as a very amateur, I never really liked hitting off pitching machines because my timing was all off, but I don't know if that's the case with, MLB caliber players. I'm sure they can make an
Hmm.
adjustment, but yeah, I'm wondering what they would rather have, like the inconsistent batting practice pitcher, well, depending on who they have, inconsistent or consistent, or the more consistent pitching machine, which, pitching machines can be weird. But yeah, it for some
They
guys it
can
might be the
be.
best option.
Yeah, I mean, if you really are dead set on like I need it in a certain spot, although it might be a pain to like set up if not everyone's using it.
That's true, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
lots of
so
wires.
I think it's we're only seeing it in an age where every single participant is willing to use it over having someone pitch to them, which I don't think we'll ever see because we have moments like Adley Rutschman having his dad pitch to him. Um, like guys like John Schneider, the manager of the Blue Jays, pitching to Vlad Guerrero Jr. So like now that I think about it, I don't think we'll ever see that day. So yeah, I mean, maybe in the future we got to start we got to start researching who's throwing to each of the guys and doing some research on how good they are at throwing BP.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because I think that was the
Um,
difference maker for Pete Alonso. I think that it was kind of made into a meme how good the 2021 guy was with like it
David
kept the
Jouse.
Statcast data, and he threw in a very small circle, uh just
Yeah, dude,
everywhere.
it was
And
like a release point. It was like a release point chart.
yes, yes, and yeah, it was all in the same area, all in 100% in the same area. um so yeah, that was kind of the difference maker for Pete Alonso. But J Rod really, I mean, really came through. I don't think obviously no one else has ever hit 41 in a round. So, but Pete Alonso
Hmm.
could have probably performed a little better if he had the best possible scenario on the mound.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about Adley switch hitting in the Derby.
very fun, extremely fun.
Yeah, very cool. Especially because he just went on a complete. I think he had like 7 home runs and 8 swings, batting righty.
Yeah,
Um,
he did much better writing.
yeah, it's funny. Everyone was like, "Oh, Vlad," or like Adley's probably so mad he didn't go righty originally. It's like I don't think he could have predicted that.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I think logically it kind of made sense to do that because I mean, if you're swinging from one side,
Hmm.
that's whatever muscles are working that side are more sore than if you were working the other side. So I
Right.
think he was kind of swinging like semi fresh from the right side,
Yeah.
which definitely helped.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Um,
mean, he hit what 27 in his round, I think, and then Luis Robert came out and hit 28. Unfortunately, he got hurt during that, but he did hit 28.
wait, Robert got hurt
Yeah.
like a day to
Like
day injury
like
or
yeah, something like that. I don't think it's anything severe. I know he just didn't play in the All-Star game because of it. Wait, hang on. Let me
yeah, that makes
look up
sense.
what it was. Wasn't
Yeah,
anything severe. Uh,
yeah. For some reason I didn't.
his cat. Yeah, he's day to day. He hurt his calf during the home run derby.
Right. Yeah, that stinks. Hate to see the home run derby get a bad stigma from, potential injuries happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Guerrero wins. Um, Kind of funny that he never really dominated any certain round, but it was a little tortoise in the hare situation.
Yeah, I mean Mookie Betts hit 11.
Yeah,
And that was his first round opponent, so that was a pretty easy one. And then the second round was Randy, who I mean Randy did pretty well in the second round. Or no, in the no, his second round opponent was Julio.
yeah,
Sorry. Yeah, his second round opponent was Julio, and then his final round opponent was Randy, who hit 23.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so this sparked a lot more conversation than I thought it would, but a lot of people want to go back to the original format that I've seen on Twitter of no timing and like being able to appreciate the home runs more. And my hot take is I enjoy more home runs even though I'm missing a few instead of fewer home runs, but getting to see all of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that for sure. I think the problem that people did I think the problem that people faced watching the, original format of the home run derby was guys would be taking like 5 pitches in a row. It
Yep.
was it would be not that exciting. Whereas this, yeah, you can't take pitches that aren't perfect, which is why the, role of the pitcher is so much more pronounced. But yeah, I think
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I sort of get it. I get wanting to appreciate the home runs more, but other than that, I I still have to go pitch clock.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I don't admittedly I don't watch the home run derby on the like ESPN standard broadcast. I only do the Statcast one, and the Statcast one. Granted, this is me being an extreme nerd, but like I've gotten to the point now, and Chris, I know you can attest to this for you as well. But like I see the exit velocity and the launch angle on every hit immediately, and I know whether it's out or not, just because I'm like I said, a huge nerd, and I understand that. Hey, probably like 3% of baseball fans can actually do that. Um, but the Statcast broadcast also showed um like a 3D like map of where every ball was going, so you could see if it was out or not. You could see like if it was like in the air, if it was going out, like kind of in real time. So I mean like you could kind of shift your eyes between each swing and the ball in its path. I don't know if ESPN had that. My guess would be probably not. I don't know exactly what the actual ESPN broadcast looked like, so maybe it was a lot more difficult to follow on there. And if people were only watching there, then I get it. But no, I mean, I can't believe people are out there now watching the Statcast broadcast.
Right. I personally did not know there was a Statcast broadcast because I know they
Uh,
don't have them for the Sunday night games anymore. So I just
yeah, I think they
figured,
bring it back just for the home run derby.
yeah. Well, that's very cool. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, plus I was watching with my mom and my aunt, and I don't want to try to introduce that type of witchcraft
So
upon.
so what was it like on the original ESPN broadcast then?
There was no like tracker following the ball. However, there were the off the bat exit velocities and launch angles. So
Okay.
there was that, which is cool. Maybe there were probably people complaining and whatnot, but I think it was pretty cool.
Okay.
Um,
Well, fair enough. Like I said, this is me speaking from the perspective of someone who watched the Statcast broadcast, which sounds like it was a lot easier to follow. Even if you're not a huge Statcast guy, you can at least, you know, get the idea of if every ball is going out.
right, 100%, 100%. Um, yeah, so yeah, Vladdy Jr. wins. It was inevitable that he was going to win at some point. He's a
Hmm.
young man at 24. And yeah, pretty cool to do that like his father did 16 years ago.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was the home run derby. What were some of your takeaways, some of your fun moments from the All-Star game?
I mean, the All-Star game, like I said, it was actually a good game. The NL won 3-2. Shout out to Elias Diaz, a 2021 How About That of mine for uh winning All-Star Game MVP. I think he became the first Rocky to do so. Um, yeah, I mean, like a lot of people complain that like the stars weren't really in the game. Like I watched Michael Lorenzen face Geraldo Perdomo, which you know I get it. I am definitely becoming a lot more open to the idea that maybe we should just abandon the one team must have an all-star rule. Um, because like, yeah, I would have rather seen, like, I don't know, Kevin Gosman out on the mound than Michael Lorenzen. Was he
Yeah.
not an all-star? Was he an all-star?
Um, I don't remember.
I don't think he was off the top of my head. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe we should abandon that idea and just focus on getting as many of the best players out there as possible, regardless of how many Braves there are, how many Rangers there are. And then also like, a lot of the guys aren't like a lot of the guys, especially the starters, just weren't the most marketable. Like obviously you have Shohei Ohtani and that's whatever. Okay, Kevin Gosman was an all-star, cool. But I mean, I don't think he pitched. I think he might have pitched like during the weekend anyway, but like and I don't get me wrong, I think Yandy Diaz is one of the best hitters in the league, and I think he deserves to be a starting all-star. There was no better first baseman in the first half, but also like, most baseball fans are gonna tune in and be like, who's this guy that's batting fifth for the AL that just homered?
Right, true, true.
And it's not, and that's not me saying MLB should change it to just put all the most famous guys in the starting lineup because that would also be really lame. Um, but like I think that's why a lot of people kind of had those takes. And it doesn't help that like Mike Trout got injured, Jordan Alvarez got injured, Aaron Judge got injured. Like you could make a case that the three best outfielders in the American League all were not playing because they were hurt. Like
100%, yeah.
that would have made it a lot cooler if they were all in there. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's there's a point to be made there. Like Michael Lorenz and also like Josiah Gray got an inning like very early on, who,
Hmm.
I think was there mostly because the Nationals did not have another representative to send, so they had him go. I mean, it does help to fill those innings at the All-Star game when, a lot of the best pitchers pitched on either like Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and couldn't get
Hmm.
innings for the All-Star game. Um, but yeah, like yeah, and some of that has to do with bad fan voting. Some of that has to do with bad player voting, but also I think some with Geraldo Perdomo, for instance, it's arguable that he shouldn't have been an All-Star, but he is having a good season and he's just kind of a
I
new
would have rather
face.
watched
So
like Lindor out there. I mean, Lindor deserved it over he did, I think.
yeah, he did. But also I don't know when some of those votes came about because I know Lindor like really has streaked over the past like couple weeks, so maybe it was a closer contest when it
It
was being
definitely
voted
was.
on.
Lindor's been particularly hot over the last like few weeks.
Yeah, so you don't know exactly when the vote happened, but yeah, Lindor did deserve it. over Perdomo, generally speaking. And yeah, I mean, it would have been better. It would have been better if, Lindor was mic'd up at some point.
Mhm.
Because yeah, he's always been electric with that type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, in terms of mic'd up stuff, I think in the first inning they knocked it out of the park, having Betts and Freeman both out there mic'd up.
Yeah, Betts and Freeman were cool as teammates. Who was the pitcher that they mic'd up?
Eovaldi.
Eovaldi. Yeah, that one was kind of weird to me.
Right. Yeah.
Like it felt a lot less natural with Eovaldi than it did with Alek Manoah last year.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. It was, yeah, it did feel kind of weird. He just kind of seemed like he was doing it to be nice, but I think wanted to focus. It also didn't help that he was like getting behind hitters like on every at bat. It was like five
Hmm.
batters, and I think he got behind on the count on like almost all of them.
Yep.
So he was like,
Um,
"Well, I might have to focus a little bit here."
yeah. One other thing, like, can we just appreciate Shohei Ohtani without always having to bring up his upcoming free agency? I felt like every time they talked about him, it was more about his free agency than it was the season he's having.
Right, yeah, yeah,
Like,
I
I don't
think,
know, it annoys me. Like, we'll have so much time to talk about it, especially after the trade deadline. Depending on whatever state the Angels are in, especially because they're kind of in free fall right now. Um, it doesn't sound like they're trading him because Artie Moreno apparently doesn't want to be the owner that traded him, which is a kind of terrifying reason to make such a make or break decision for your franchise. Um, but I don't know. Like Shohei Ohtani is arguably having his best season. We're now at the point where we're acknowledging Babe Ruth never actually did this.
yeah,
Um, so like I don't know. Let's just like I don't know. I feel like we need to just appreciate this without talking about free agency, especially at the All-Star game, um, because like there's gonna be so much time to talk about it. Like let's not do it now.
yeah. I definitely understand that sentiment because it's talking about things that are pretty much out of Shohei Ohtani's control. Whereas, yeah, if you talk
Hmm.
about the all the every stat known to man that has been attributed to him and every exclusive club that he's put himself in, it's just going to show more appreciation. I think people care about that. Whereas when you talk about free agency, it's all speculation now. It won't necessarily be all speculation when you're talking about it in November when you know you there's no type of like tampering or anything going on because he's
Hmm.
on the Angels. Whereas now it's all speculation, and it's 99% likely that the only movement that will happen is, 4, 5, 6 months from now.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing, just John Smoltz in general. Don't love that.
Yeah, yeah. You forget, and then the All-Star break comes around, and
Yeah.
talking about he's talking about batting average.
Yeah, like I don't know why I didn't make this connection earlier, but when Luis Ariz came up and John Smoltz started talking immediately in my head, I was like, "Oh no, oh no!"
Yeah,
Like you already know where he's going to go. You can script it. You can write his entire script for him right now.
right, right. Yeah, it was very predictable. He brought like, oh, this might be the new type of hitter with the shifts going away, and I'm like hitting the ball on the ground is a little less taboo, and I'm thinking like that's true, but the batting average on ground balls in general has been raised by 7 points this year without the
Yeah, and
shift.
not only that, but Luis Ariz was never shifted to begin with.
Never, no, he in his career beforehand, I made sure to look it up that night.
Yeah, it was like 5%, right?
I think it was 3%. It,
Yeah,
it
like
was like somewhere,
what?
yeah, it was
Like
in the
oh,
single
Luis
digits.
Ariz is benefiting from the shift ban. It's like no, actually, people understood who he was as a hitter before there was a shift ban, so they didn't shift him. In fact, the same thing goes for every like contact heavy hitter. Like look at like DJ LeMahieu's prime in like 2020 to 21. Like nobody was shifting on him at that time. Or 2019 to 20. Like nobody was shifting against DJ LeMahieu. Like nobody shifted against like Stephen Kwan last year. Nobody shifted against David Fletcher in like 2019 to 20 when he had a high batting average. Like people don't shift against high contact guys to begin with. Nicky Lopez in 2021 is another one. Nico Horner in 2022.
Yeah, you know what Luis Ariz would have done to that shift? He would have laughed at it.
He would have laughed at it, and then he would have went the opposite way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like even I don't think. Well, actually, this guy is specifically doing what he's doing this year, but like Bo Bichette, he's like the opposite field king, and yeah, I don't think he's ever been a guy particularly shifted against. Yeah, no, it's just it's a good point if you don't add any facts or perspective or genuine logic to it, but when you actually do any bit of research, it kind of runs stale.
Yeah, I mean it is kind of coincidental, and it's more coincidental than anything that the year that they banned the shifts, there's a guy threatening to hit 400, and without thinking about it, you're gonna be like, oh, like he must be, like benefiting from not being shifted against, and like he's going on the ground a lot, and it's paying off, and it's like actually he was never shifted against. Like he just happens to be making a lot more solid contact, hitting line drives, and he's placing it in the right spots, and it has nothing to do with the fact that there's no shift.
Yes. Unfortunately, even with the shift, the slugging is still much higher on line drives and fly balls than it is on grounders. I think the
Yeah.
slugging on fly balls this year is over 800, and that includes balls that just hang up and end up in people's gloves. But this slugging on grounders is 273. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what happens.
Right.
But yeah, you mentioned John Smoltz. I did hear that, and it was kind of a cringe fest when Luis Ariz came up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it
It
stinks
just
because
sucks that every time there's like any sort of national baseball broadcast that is meant to like show the fun side of the game, like the World Baseball Classic, every single like nationally televised game, the All-Star game, like these events are meant to be like, look how cool baseball is and look how fun this sport is. And then you have John Smoltz coming in there and be like, I'm going to make it about the things that suck, actually. Like the reasons you shouldn't watch today's game and why you should miss the game from 30 years ago when I played. And it's every single time. And it's like MLB, you know, like they love to preach their efforts to appeal to younger audiences. And it's like you're trying to teach the younger audiences with John Smoltz that the game was actually way better, like when their parents were their age.
right, yeah, right.
Like,
Like,
what are we talking about here?
and of course, like when when you're talking about the strikeouts being raised, it's all about the hitter's approach changing and not the pitcher's getting better.
Mhm. Yeah, like there are plenty of color commentators. There are plenty of respected former players that understand the good things about today's game that are unique to today, that are good at putting those into words. David Cohn is the best example. Like David Cohn knows his stuff. He's a guy who played in relatively the same era as John Smoltz, and he's a guy that loves talking about advanced metrics and why the game is better today than it was when he played. And the talent is better, and the way we evaluate players is better, and the way that players are taught is better. Like put him on the broadcast, and I promise you, there will be more younger people that listen to that and gravitate towards the game than there are with John Smoltz.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree with that. And I think what's good is I think a lot of the younger people, our generation and even before us, like listen to John Smoltz and they kind of brush it off and maybe not think about it too much because I don't know, like they weren't able to see Smoltz's era, so they have nothing to compare this to, but they're still
Yeah.
enjoying baseball and still enjoying their favorite players. So I don't know.
Yeah, it annoys me. I would love to never see him in a broadcast booth again. Fantastic pitcher, no doubt Hall of Famer. Respect for his career, but please get him out of the booth for the love of God.
Yeah. Probably a nice, formidable human being as well, but bad takes.
Yeah.
Bad takes.
Yeah, yikes. Just absolute yikes.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that stinks. And also with Luis Ariz, like I think I enjoy watching him. I definitely enjoy watching him. I think he's a very cool player. I think he's a very good player,
Mm-hmm.
but he does bring out
And
I
I'm
hate
rooting
the
for
take.
him.
I'm rooting for him, but I do sometimes hate the takes that he brings out of
That's
people.
spawn. Yeah, that's spawn from his existence.
Yes,
Yeah,
100%.
it is unfortunate that you have to tie Luis Arias into like boomers thinking that like he is the new, prototype of player that needs to continuously exist. It's like, yeah, everyone should just hit 383 actually.
Yeah, no, he's not going out there campaigning being like, I should automatically win MVP if I hit 400.
Yeah.
He's not.
Yeah. No, I mean at least not publicly.
Yeah, no, not publicly. He's not out there being like, average exit velocity does not matter. He's not doing that.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, it's like launch angle is bad. It's like actually you're doing launch angle the way you should be doing it.
Right, yeah. You're
Like
actually
there are
one of the
other
best at
players that
launch
should do
angle.
it. Like there are other players that should do it a different way. You're doing
Right.
it the way you need to a lot, and it's working out, and you should keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny to think of Luis Ariz just like secretly being a old school baseball head, and that's why he's hitting the way he is.
Yeah,
He,
he's doing it out of protest.
yeah,
It's like I could break the home run record if I wanted to, actually.
yes. Um, yeah, no, it's just he's doing what works for him, and he's great at it. He's the best at what he does.
Yes.
But yeah. So yeah, that was pretty annoying. But yeah, anything more that you took away from the All-Star game?
Yeah, there was one other thing. This was more happening on the internet than anywhere else, but this just annoyed me. I know that this is kind of just turned into us complaining. I promise I did enjoy the All-Star game. There were a lot of great things about it. I'm glad it was a good game. I'm glad the NL finally won. I'm glad that Elias Diaz won MVP. I'm glad that, Randy Arozarena shined in the outfield, that Yanni Diaz homered. Um, that like Josiah Gray got an inning and did well. Like that made me happy. But one thing that annoyed me, so I don't know if you watch the player intros, but you wouldn't believe this, but the Astros players actually got booed by Mariners fans. And this was Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, and Framber Valdez. And the immediate reaction on the internet was like, they know these people didn't play in 2017, right? Like they didn't debut until later. It's like, yeah, no, I think Mariners fans actually are perfectly well aware of that. But I don't know if you know this, but every year the division rivals of the home team get booed in player intros. Like it's actually an every year thing. Like go back watch the 2022 All-Star game at the Dodger Stadium last year. The Giants got booed. The Padres probably got booed, and the Diamondbacks and Rockies may have got some as well. It happens every single year. Doesn't matter, doesn't matter like what they may have done if there's allegations or whatever. But like it's just a classic thing. Look at 2015 when the Cardinals got booed in Cincinnati. It was extremely loud. And it's also just a common thing for like if there's a team in your division that happens to be very good year in and year out, that's probably the team that's getting booed. Like the Dodgers got it in San Diego, they got it in Colorado because they're very good. And the Astros are very good. And they win the division every year. They have every year since 2017 outside of the pandemic year. So, and also it's like, that's the team that knocked the Mariners out of the playoffs last year. It's the team that they've had, played a lot of really good games against and have battled for the playoffs with. Like that is the team that makes most sense to be booing. Like you can't boo the A's. Like that you can't do that. Like the Rangers, they're up and coming. If you want to, I'm not gonna fault you for it. The Angels, you could, but it's like no one's gonna boo Trout, no one's gonna boo Ohtani. And I don't really think people care enough to boo Carlos Estevez either. The Astros are the team that you boo. And people are tying it to the cheating scandal and being like, "Oh my God, people are still booing the Astros. It was 6 years ago. They won the World Series already. Like enough." It's like, no, actually, they're not booing them because of the scandal. They're booing them because they're the Astros. And Jordan especially. Like Jordan makes perfect sense for Mariners fans to be booing because he hit that home run against them in the playoffs last year, the walk off.
Yeah, and the go ahead one in game two.
Yeah, and the thing that sucks is the All-Star game is in Texas next year, so the same conversation will be had when the Astros also get booed next year.
Yeah. Oh, that's so annoying. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Astros fans can be booed for other reasons than the cheating scandal. That
yeah,
can just happen. Yeah, we're not
yeah.
used to
Like
it.
it's a thing every year.
Yeah, we're not used to it.
Yeah.
However, yeah, it can happen. Yeah, I think that's yeah. I don't really have anything to add because I think you said everything there. Like, yeah, if you're in when it was in Yankee Stadium, I think all the Red Sox players got booed, and when it was when it was at Citi Field, I'm sure that Yankees and Phillies players were booed. Like, I don't know. I think it's
Hmm.
tradition, and it's never like
Yes.
overwhelming.
Yeah. Go watch the 2015 intros when the Cardinals got introduced. Specifically, Yadier Molina got introduced at Great American Ballpark. Like it was, you probably could have heard the boos from like 15 miles away.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
a thing. It's tradition. Every year the home team boos like the best division rival essentially.
Yes,
And this year that was the Astros. And I think everyone would agree that this year it's the Astros. And next year it's probably going to be the Astros as well.
right. Especially same
And the
state
fans,
rival.
yeah, like the fans, I think are perfectly well aware that they didn't play in 2017.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
Doesn't mean they're not going to boo them. It's
Yeah.
just a classic thing.
Yeah, everyone knows, everyone who is a firm Astros hater still has their sights set on Jake Marisnik, maybe Teoscar
Hmm. Yeah, and
Hernandez.
don't get me wrong, like I still think there are people that boo the Astros for 2017, and yes, I think those people are lame. But like, I don't know. I think most of those boos were out of simply the fact that they are the division rival of the Seattle Mariners.
Right. Yeah, and maybe the scandal was part of the like 20% of the reason they were booing, but
Hmm.
it was not the entire
But
reason.
if there's no scandal, yeah, if the scandal never happened, it didn't exist. I think they're still booing the Astros more than any other team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Um, yeah, that's that's a good point to make. That's a good point to
Hmm.
make there. So yeah, that is the All-Star game. I guess I don't know. I feel we because we have been talking we have said a slightly negative sentiment. I kind of want
Yeah.
to I don't know throw out some positives. But
Hmm.
we did earlier in the show. We talked about Elias Diaz. That was pretty cool.
Yes. It was a good All-Star game. Seattle, nice job. Although there are some things to clean up.
Yes, and Seattle just scenically is once again it was displayed how
Yes.
great of scenery it has and reminds me I'd probably like to go to that ballpark at some point. It seems like one to
It's
check
number one
off
on
the
my
list.
list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, seems like a very cool place. I think I liked I liked those little mini sketches they had in the middle there.
In the
Um,
coffee shops.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited what they do for Texas next year.
Um, yeah, I think that would be
That's gonna be fun.
yeah, that would be very cool. One specific note was it was yeah, it was cool when it was funny when like they were doing the sketch about exaggerating like the rule changes and how there were rule changes
Hmm.
in the coffee shop and like Spencer Strider saying like, "Oh, I used to have more time last year," and he's like sort of in a rush. It was solid acting on his part, in my opinion, too.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny. It was cool. I think the players cooperated and made for some good moments.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, that was fun.
yeah, good time, good time. So yeah, now we'll get into the annual first half awards. Don't really hold that much
Yes.
meaning, but can be fun to talk about at this point in the year, acknowledge who's been the best at certain aspects of the game or who's just been the best in general. So yeah, the first half awards we'll go over. Usually we just briefly talk about each player that we pick, and maybe at the end throw who we think will end up winning at the end of the year. Most of the time we just say it's going to be the guy who is in the lead right now. But it is fun to think about maybe, how this race might change at the end of the first half, or at the end of the season, mind you. Yeah. So American League Rookie of the Year. Um, who do you have winning right now?
So right now, my AL Rookie of the Year was one of the starters in the All-Star game. I'm going with Josh Young of the Texas Rangers, third baseman. He has a 130 weighted runs created plus this year, 2.8 Fangraphs wins above replacement that leads all American League rookies. He's slashing 280, 331, 504. A 500 slugging is just really impressive to me as a rookie. And also he has, plus defense at third base as well. The other person that I considered was Hunter Brown. But he does have a 4.12 ERA, which I would like it to be lower if I'm going to put him over Josh Young. So I will be going with Josh Young.
Yeah, my pick is also Josh Young. He is the leader in rookies. He's the leader in American League rookies in wins above replacement, home runs, and doubles. Also, a quick shout out to Luke Raley, who, I didn't realize was a rookie. It just sounds like a guy who's been in the league for a couple years. But Luke Raley, he has a 925 OPS this year, which is actually almost 100 points higher than Josh Young. It just happens that Raley has 135 less plate appearances than Josh Young. So that's why I put Young over Raley. But I think there's a somewhat decent argument for Raley being Rookie of the Year at this point, because he only has 0.2 less FWAR in 135 less plate appearances. But I put Young just because of Young being such a complete player and kind of leading rookies in pretty much all the important categories, albeit not leading in rate statistics, but you can't really look at like qualifying guys when you're talking about Rookie of the Year. And I don't even know if I don't think Luke Raley qualifies for batting title statistics anyway, so you can kind of toss that out the window. So Young does lead in most of the categories. And
I think it is pretty fun, by the way, that I think it is pretty fun that, or I think Luke Raley would I would have considered him if he had more plate appearances. That's
yeah,
kind of the only thing that stopped me, because he does have a 159 weighted runs created plus.
yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. But yeah, no, Young does have more overall production. For the end of the year, I think Young will also take it. He's actually run into
Yeah.
a bit of bad luck lately. He has like over the last like 40 days, he has like 10 100 plus mile per hour line drive outs, which I just found on mostly accident. I just was looking for another stat and just found that he was getting very unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, do you think Young will take it at the end of the year?
I do. I don't know. There's not much reason to believe otherwise.
Yeah, and yeah, good on Young. I wasn't really considering him preseason necessarily, maybe because he had a rough time in the majors last year, but he's out here really dominating, making really, really high quality contact, and just dominating at the third base position. Obviously took third base at the All-Star game, which is cool. I think Chapman should have started, uh but it, you know, albeit Young has been like a top 3 um AL rookie. And or no, I think Ramirez should have started, but out of the two between Young and Chapman, I thought Chapman should have started. But I think Young has still been a very good third baseman nonetheless.
Right.
So National League Rookie of the Year shouldn't take much thought. Um,
No.
yeah,
I mean
it's
it's
Corbin
Patrick
Carroll.
Bailey from the San Francisco Giants catcher.
Yeah, Patrick Bailey.
Yeah, no, it is Corbin Carroll. He is what 3.8 wins above replacement on Fangraphs. That's like probably one of the 10 best in all of baseball.
Yep. Yep.
In fact, it is tied for fourth. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean he's in the MVP race, like quite comfortably.
Right. Right. For context on what Carroll's doing, he leads National League rookies in WAR, home runs, doubles, runs scored, and stolen bases. And he also has plus defense to add to that. And yeah, it's a more interesting conversation on how he lines up in the MVP race than how he lines up in the Rookie of the Year race, because he is running away with the Rookie of the Year as of now. So it's a pretty easy discussion to have, and I think it's a pretty easy pick to say he's going to have it at the end of the year too. I don't think anyone's taken his spot.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Um,
I think that one kind of goes without saying.
yep, 100%. American League Manager of the Year. This is where the conversations get interesting, and we hate this award because there's the least amount to evaluate off of, and it is always the least clear award, no matter what time of the year you're talking about it, whether you're talking about it now, whether you're talking about it at the end of the year, because in all honesty, no one who's outside a clubhouse can tell you who the best manager actually is in a given year. That's my belief,
Yeah.
and that's why it's kind of a
Honestly,
stupid
no one that's
award.
in a clubhouse can either, because most likely they're only in one clubhouse out of the 30. And it's
Yes,
hard to pair. It's like, well, seeing this guy, but you wouldn't really know if there's another guy that's better.
right, exactly. It's yeah, it's kind of silly, but they hand out the award, so we'll talk about it at this point in the year. Who do you have as American League Manager of the Year?
I have Bruce Bochy of the Texas Rangers winning it. It's his first year at the helm of the Rangers. They are currently leading a very stacked division by 2 games over the juggernaut Astros. They have a very dangerous offense, one of the best in the league. Um, a lot of people, even with the additions that they've made the last couple off seasons, a lot of people saw them kind of being hovering the middle of the division, but he's gotten a lot of overperformance out of a lot of guys. Jonah Heim with a 121 OPS plus. He's been solid this season. Josh Young, we just mentioned, has been great. Adolis Garcia has continued to be great. Ezekiel Duran, Travis Jankowski, Mitch Garver, they all have above average OPS pluses. And then he's gotten a lot out of the pitching staff. Nate Eovaldi, most notably. John Gray has been, his FIP isn't fantastic, but his run prevention's been great. Dane Dunning, I mentioned before the show, has a 2.84 ERA with a 3.82 FIP. That's been very good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, there's not really much to go off of. The way that they hand this out is usually just like guy who was on a team that did better than they expected. Bonus points if it's his first year as manager.
Yeah,
So I would go with Bruce Bochy for that one.
it's 100% that. It's 100% that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my personal vote for American League Manager of the Year of the annual first half awards actually goes to Brandon Hyde, who
That's also fair.
I think it's fair to go with. I think obviously Bochy, like the Rangers are surprising more, especially being at the top of that division, whereas the Orioles are second in their division. But the Orioles do happen to have a better record, and uh and I think it might get lost on the voters when this does come around, or when this does come around, is like the Orioles, despite winning 83 games last year, the consensus was not to have high expectations for them this year, because they didn't really make any offseason additions. They were expected
Mm-hmm.
to make a regression this year, and they were kind of projected on all fronts to be a last place team. However, they are. They're 19 games above 500 at this point. They're performing well above the preseason expectations that a lot of people had. The Rangers are as well. However, the Orioles are, you could argue, are even performing above what more above the preseason expectation than the Rangers. Also something I considered was the Orioles are 14-9 in one-run games. Meanwhile, the Rangers are 5-12. So I think, and I don't know how much of that has to do with managerial decisions, but I think that's something that the Orioles are doing right. I think the Rangers are winning more because they're dominating games and dominating with that offense. Um, and then with I think also Hyde is dealing with maybe lesser of a roster. I mean, at least in terms of payroll, the uh the Orioles have a $75 million payroll. The Rangers have a $200 million plus payroll. I know that doesn't mean that one team is going to have the better roster, but I think just generally speaking, Hyde has some less assets. The Rangers have really added a lot to the roster. I do know that, DeGrom is out and Bochy has had to deal with that, and I credit him for being able to win without, his projected ace. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't fault anyone for picking either of these two guys. These guys are definitely, it's going to come down to them probably. And I do think at the end of the year, Bruce Bochy is going to win this. I think I predict that a lot also as like a voter thing. I think the voters will pick Bochy. Although I don't think the Rangers are going to end up winning this division. But I think they will give it to Bochy because, first year manager. Also, Hyde was a finalist last year, so maybe it's a form of like voter fatigue if you want to nominate the same guy twice in a row. Like, yeah, I think they'll give it to Bochy by the end of the year.
Especially like coming out of retirement. Like I think
Yeah,
a lot of people will like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a story. It is indeed a story. Um, so now on to National League Manager of the Year. This there's like three very good candidates with National League Manager of the Year. Who did you go with?
I am going to go with David Bell, from National League Manager of the Year. I know that like Torey Lovullo is managing a better team by record, and maybe even just a better team by roster, with relatively similar, maybe even a little better expectations. But the Reds, I had coming in last in this division. I liked the Pirates making developments more than them. I liked the Cubs making developments more than them. And I mean, they are taking advantage of a very struggling Cardinals team and a kind of just hovering mediocrity Brewers team. And really, like, not only are they, taking advantage of that, but they're also having fun doing it and looking like a lot of fun doing it. Ellie De La Cruz certainly helps out with that a lot. But I mean, they've developed a lot of rookies this year pretty immediately between Ellie, like I just mentioned, between Spencer Steer at first base, between Andrew Abbott as a pitcher. I mean, he's been excellent this year at 2.38 ERA, 3.86 FIP. So I'll go with David Bell from the Cincinnati Reds with this one. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of other good options.
Yeah, I agree with going with David Bell. I think he is doing the best with the least amount of assets. We both predicted the Reds to be a last place team, which is, a statement when you're talking about the National League Central.
Yep.
You're talking real bottom of the barrel there. But here the Reds are 9 games above 500 and leading the division. Also should be noted. I looked this up last night. 20 the Reds have had 22 pitchers with 10 plus innings this year, and that is the most pitchers with 10 plus innings of anyone in the National League. So, Bell has had to go to a lot of different guys to get production. That is especially notable when his two best pitchers are out with injury right now and have been for a while with Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. Like they were like the only two players we were really optimistic about heading into the season, and they're out yet the Reds are doing extremely well without them, being 9 games above 500 right now and doing even better over the last 1 or 2 months. So yeah, I think it's David Bell for now, because of just how much the Reds are doing with a depleted roster and not a high payroll, not a lot of just upper management dedicating a lot to this team, and Green and Lodolo being out, yet they're still in first place. However, I think at the end of the year, my end of the year prediction for National League Manager of the Year is Skip Schumacher, because I think
Yep.
it's more likely for me that the Marlins make the playoffs than the Reds. And I think, if given a tiebreaker, I think the voters would give it to the guy who made it to the playoffs over the guy who did not, despite really outperforming
Yeah.
expectations. And we saw that with the American League Manager of the Year last year when Terry Francona was picked over Brandon Hyde.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the Reds win the division, it's a wrap because I think with Manager of the Year, there definitely is some bonus points handed out if your team wins the division, and I think the Reds have a better chance of winning theirs than the Diamondbacks or the Marlins. Um, Certainly the Marlins. I definitely don't think they're winning it. They're already what 8.5 games back.
Yeah,
Um, Diamondbacks are tied with the Dodgers, but that's the Dodgers. They still haven't gone on that run, but it feels like they just are going to at some point. I think the Reds have the best chance out of those three, so I would go with Cincinnati, and I still think that it'll be won by David Bell.
yeah, that is very fair. All right, so now onto the players where there's less room for subjectivity, more objectivity with this. However, American League Cy Young is a really hard one to pick.
Mhm.
So who are you going with for American League Cy Young?
Yeah, after a lot of consideration, I decided I'm going to go with Framber Valdez on this one. He has a 2.51 ERA and a 2.82 FIP. I know that Kevin Gausman has a better FIP than him, but I don't know. Valdez just has done it. I like his batted ball pile a lot more. Obviously, he's the ground god, of course. And I do think the half run of run prevention that's is better than the close to half run of FIP. So I am gonna go with Framber Valdez on this one, but if you go with Kevin Gausman, I wouldn't fault you for it.
Yeah, I definitely understand that sentiment there of the ERA outweighing the FIP. My American League Cy Young, however, is neither of those two. Because I also consider a lot like expected ERA and the batted ball profile with this. And my American League Cy Young, it's not really a strong candidate for me, but it's Nathan Eovaldi just because he checks off the run prevention box, the expected ERA box, and the FIP box more for me. Um, with Eovaldi, he also leads the American League in innings. He's the only qualifying pitcher in the American League who is in the top 6 in ERA, FIP, and expected ERA. He hasn't had the most hard contact against him, whereas for me, for Amber Valdez, he has like an upper threes expected ERA, and that's because he has one of the highest average exit velocities against this year. And he isn't getting as many ground balls as usual. I think his ground ball rate has dropped from 65% to like 55%. And I think he's getting a little bit lucky on ground balls. Hitters only have a 200 average against him on ground balls, whereas normally that's like a 240, 250 range. With Gausman, I think also his expected ERA is like a full run higher than his FIP, and that's because he has a average exit velocity against of 90 miles per hour. So, with FIP versus expected ERA, it doesn't really account for that. It only accounts for home runs in terms of batted balls, and that I think there's a lot more to it than that. So that's why I look at the expected ERA. Not that Eovaldi is leading in expected ERA. I think he just checks off the most boxes. With McClanahan, I think McClanahan has a lot of batted ball luck, especially with runners in scoring position. He has like I was looking it up last night. With runners in scoring position, McClanahan has a 224 slugging against with runners in scoring position, but like a 403 expected slugging. So yeah, and I think an under the radar candidate for this award right now is Felix Bautista because of how unbelievably dominant he's been out of the pen. He has a 107 ERA right now. He's on pace for like 150 strikeouts as a reliever, which is unbelievable. So I wouldn't be surprised if like all these starters, if some of these starters like kind of peter out toward the end. If maybe, Felix Batista is able to be even like a finalist or something. He's been really, really
Yeah.
dominant out of the pen. But my who I have at the end of the year, I think Framber Valdez will get it, because I don't think really people are looking at expected ERA right now. It's mostly ERA, FIP, innings, and I think that's who everyone will go with. And I don't completely fault people for doing that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, I think anytime you have a reliever that's like being discussed as a Cy Young candidate, I think it's just awesome. Uh,
Yeah.
Even if they like, I don't think Felix Batista under any circumstance will deserve to win it this year. But it is fun anytime we can have that conversation because it definitely doesn't happen every year.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. And it's arguable that the last time we talked about
Hmm.
a reliever as a potential like Cy Young candidate was an Orioles closer with Zach Britton. Um,
Hmm.
and maybe a little bit thrown
Maybe
to
even Edwin Diaz last year.
oh yeah, that's true. That is very true. Yeah, Edwin Diaz for sure.
But I don't know, like in a different year maybe. But like I think no one was actually taking him over Sandy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that's American League Cy Young. National League Cy Young.
I am going with Zach Gallen. It's probably not that difficult of a decision for much. I mean, he's at 118 innings pitched, which is, I'd say pretty median among the Cy Young candidates. Excellent strikeout to walk numbers, solid home run prevention as well. Um, and a 304 ERA, a 277 FIP. He's just kind of been fantastic all around. I think he leads the National League in FIP, and I wouldn't surprise me if he leads in ERA as well. Actually, I don't think he does off the top of my head. No, Justin Steele definitely does, and Clayton Kershaw we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zach Gallen is my Cy Young.
Yeah, I also picked Zach Gallen for Cy Young. I think there's an argument that there are guys doing better inning per inning than him, but just haven't reached that level of innings production. Like Steele has done really, really well, but he trails Gallen by I think like 23 innings right now. So I would take Gallen's numbers over Justin Steele's. You could
Yes,
I think there's an argument also for that with like Spencer Strider, but Spencer Strider has 14 less innings than Zach Gallen. So yeah, I have Zach Gallen as well because I think he has the best numbers for the type of innings production that he has. And I
and
think
I think he will win it.
yeah, or yeah, I didn't think about that. I think I'm gonna say Steele takes it at the end of the year.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
After MVP, I probably have to hop off. By the way.
All right, sounds good. Or yeah,
Yeah.
that's we can do that. Um
Hmm.
yeah, I say Steele takes it. I think he has the run prevention for that, and I think if he has 20 less innings at the end of the year, it's less of a problem than if he has 20 innings at this point in the year because there's less of a sample
Yeah.
size. But yeah, I could definitely
We
like
just can we just yeah. Can we just do both MVPs right now? I mean, there's really not much of a discussion to be had on either side.
yeah, no.
Yeah,
Uh
it's Otani and Acuna.
yep, yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. And I mean Otani, I think it's borderline a wrap. Um, yeah. And then Acuna, I wouldn't call it a wrap just because it's like, crazy things could happen. Um, Other candidates, I don't know, shout out to like Mookie Betts, shout out to Freddie Freeman, Corbin Carroll, like we mentioned earlier. Uh, yeah, I don't know. It's Acuna.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Um, do you want to hop off? I could rattle off a couple notes and then wrap up
Yeah.
the
All right.
show.
Thank you for having me. Heck of
Yep.
a pod.
Cool.
See you
Yep.
guys later.
Yep. Um, yeah, so Daniel had to hop off. He is, of course, on his Cape Cod exploits, covering many different things. And he actually witnessed, one thing we didn't get into. He witnessed three different players get drafted, like get the call at the site, on site, saw it, I think took video of it, of most of it. So really cool moment for him, doing solid work over at the Cape Cod Baseball League, living over there, and yeah, continuing to do that through probably mid-August, I think. Having a great time with that. So yeah, to go over MVP, yeah, I definitely agree that it is Ohtani and Acuna. Just with Ohtani, it's extremely funny. He is the leader in position player F4, which would qualify you alone for being the MVP. But he's the leader in position player F4, but he also has a 133 ERA plus and 100 and a third innings pitched, which really just puts him far and away the rest of the competition because not only do none of the players meet him in F4, but uh but none of the players have also pitched. So, that's it kind of gets cliche at this point, but that's the type of player we're dealing with, and that's why he's going to be he's the obvious MVP choice, and that's why, I think Daniel and I would both agree he's going to win it at the end of the year. Also, I think Ohtani could take a sabbatical in August and September and still earn that most valuable player award because of how much he's been able to do already. I think he could just literally take the last 2 months off and still win MVP, which is pretty crazy. With National League MVP, yeah, Ronald Acuna Jr. is the clear favorite right now, and I think he's the first half MVP. Just a quick note on him: he's the only player in the National League right now with a 2040 season. Of course, 20 home runs, 40 stolen bases, but he's also the only player in the National League with a 2030 season. Also, the only player in the league with a 2020 season. Also, the only player in the National League with a 2010 season. There's no other player with 20 home runs and 10 stolen bases in the National League, and Acuna has 41 of those stolen bases. It's pretty unbelievable what he's been able to do. And he, in terms of just value statistics, Ronald Acuna Jr. leads in wins above replacement, OPS, and he leads in stolen bases by 15 stolen bases. So, I mean, I think, and in my opinion, anytime you're leading in both OPS and stolen bases, it's kind of an automatic MVP victory, unless your defense is extremely, extremely bad. I don't know. And that's not the case with Ronald Acuna Jr. at all. He's been kind of like an average defender. So him leading in OPS and stolen bases is kind of that. And one thing I actually wanted to address here, and it sucks that Daniel can't be here to jump in, but it was just a thing that I've seen on the internet, and I actually had a discussion talking with a friend, polite discussion, not an argument at all, but a polite discussion that I had with a friend was like, should you automatically win MVP if you hit 400? I think there's probably a faction of people out there who think Luis Ariz is like the first half MVP because he's hitting 383. And, if he ends up hitting 400, he should automatically get that MVP. And I really disagree with that, because, you're overvaluing batting average, just quite simply. I actually put out a tweet earlier this week talking about the correlation with batting average and all other statistics compared to runs scored per game. And out of batting average, on base percentage, slugging, OPS, WOBA, and ISO, batting average has, by far the least correlation to runs scored per game. So why are we going to evaluate a player off, why are we going to determine an MVP off a statistic that doesn't correlate to runs as much as, the other statistics? And I think part of the argument with having a guy win MVP because he hit 400 is it's really hard to do. And yeah, I agree, it's really hard to do. There's a reason why no one's done it since 1941. However, there's a lot of things in baseball that are really hard to do. There's a lot of statistical anomalies in baseball that haven't been rewarded with an MVP. Most notably for me, like the year Nolan Ryan set the modern era single season record for strikeouts. He did not win Cy Young. I think it's arguable that he could have won Cy Young, but he didn't have the best ERA. and he didn't have the most wins above replacement, I don't think, that year. Not that that was looked at in the 1970s, but that's something to be noted. And like uh, the year that Ricky Henderson stole 130 bases, he finished 10th in MVP, and that's how it should have been. He was not the best player that year. So Luis Arraez can do a really, really hard thing, get that 400 batting average, but still not be the best player. I think we can appreciate Luis Arraez and the potential of him hitting 400 and how hard that is to do, while also recognizing that that's not the most valuable thing to do out there. It just isn't. And if you want to argue, he's getting on base at a crazy rate. Juan Soto had a higher on base percentage 2 years ago, and he didn't win MVP. He didn't even win MVP. Not to mention that the last time the last time that a player did hit 400 was Ted Williams, and he didn't win MVP that year. I don't really use that argument too much because, Ted Williams deserved that MVP over Joe DiMaggio, but I digress. But yeah, going back to the point of, Luis Arraez's MVP validity, because I think when Daniel and I discussed it, he's not in the conversation because we kind of look at things very similarly. We look at the wins above replacement numbers, we look at the OPS leaders, and the things that go into value in our minds. However, we know that's not everybody. But I think it's important to recognize Arraez can be doing something really hard and not necessarily be having the most value. He's doing a thing that's really hard. Acuna, you could argue we've kind of seen this before. Like we've seen a guy get a lot of stolen bases and have a high OPS. I mean, Ricky Henderson did that in 1990. He had 65 stolen bases and a 1016 OPS. So we've seen that before, but in Luis Arraez, we haven't seen a guy hit 400 since 1941. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's the most valuable, because batting average does not signify that you have the most value. The same way, with Ricky Henderson setting the stolen base record, he stole 130 bases. That was valuable, but it wasn't the most valuable. Whereas, yeah, if someone were to set the OPS record this year, the WAR record this year, they'd surely be the most valuable, because with OPS, that's the highest correlation to runs out there when you're looking at team data. So yeah, that's what I have to say on that whole thing. I wish Daniel was in for the discussion, but of course he's got work to do with the Cape Cod League and all that. And I'll get into a preview of the weekend ahead. I'll kind of play both roles here with the series to watch and the day-by-day pitching matchups. So despite it being Thursday as we're recording this, there still aren't a lot of pitching matchups that are announced, so it's hard to evaluate what the best ones are. But yeah, I will get into that after talking about some of the series that are pretty notable. What's notable is there is an NLCS rematch from last year. We got the Phillies hosting the San Diego Padres. The Padres, they were hoping they'd be in a better spot in the standings at this point this year. However, I think that's still a notable matchup to be going on. Along with that, Blue Jays Diamondbacks. That's a really, really fun series to watch. You could argue that's the best series to watch this upcoming weekend. It's the Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Revenge Series, the Dalton Varsho Revenge Series. It's the Gabriel Moreno Revenge Series. But all in all, that's a really good matchup between two playoff contenders, especially the Diamondbacks, tied for the top at the division. Another series that is probably star-studded is the Mets and Dodgers going at it for a 3-game set. And then I think arguably the premier series to watch is the Orioles and the Marlins. That's actually the best series record-wise, as the Orioles are 54-35, the Marlins are 53-39. A fun combination there. They're only going to be playing once a year, and yeah, that's the best series record-wise going this weekend. So check out Orioles Marlins. I know it wasn't expected, but those are two extremely viable playoff candidates, making good runs at this point in the year. And then with matchups to starting pitching matchups to watch, as I mentioned, not everything is announced quite yet, but you got some decent ones going so far. You have Shohei Ohtani and Ty France, or no, not Ty France. What's this guy's name? JP France of the Houston Astros, who's having a solid year, at least in run prevention thus far. Justin Verlander and Julio Urias is a solid matchup. I know they kind of both wish that this year was going better so far this year, but albeit that those are two guys that are pretty good at their craft. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Friday in terms of good matchups. Brian Bayo versus Kyle Hendricks is pretty interesting. Both significant, pretty ground ball pitchers, but yeah, not going to get necessarily the national spotlight. For Saturday, two really hot pitchers. Maybe this is the matchup of the day here, is Taijuan Walker versus Blake Snell. Overall numbers aren't like the craziest this year, but if you look at both Taijuan Walker and Blake Snell since like mid-May or since the start of June, they've been really tearing it up. So I think you should really check that out. They've both been doing it really well. Also, another good matchup of guys who have been doing really well lately is James Paxton versus Marcus Stroman. I will actually be seeing that in person. I will be in Chicago for that. So that's a very, very good matchup there between Stroman and Paxton. Red Sox Cubs at 2:20 on Saturday. And as far as other matchups go, Spencer Strider and Lance Lynn, that's cool. It would have been cool if Lance Lynn was doing a little bit better. And Framber Valdez and Reed Detmers going at it also. And then on Sunday, there is not much announced for that. So I'll pretty much skip that altogether, except Zach Wheeler and Seth Lugo are facing off against each other, two pretty solid pitchers there. And then the one I will be seeing in person is Justin Steele and Cutter Crawford, who, if you just remembered, I predicted, that Justin Steele is going to be Cy Young. Not a preseason prediction. I'm not taking credit for that, but as far as the rest of the season goes, I think he will. I think we'll take Cy Young. All right. Well, that should do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio, and listen, watch all the digital content, watch the YouTube shorts, very digestible content over there, and check out the playlist on the YouTube channel. We just added a playlist. I don't know why it hadn't been added before, but that's my fault. But a playlist of all the guest interviews we've had. If you want to catch up on all the interviews that we've done with very significant guests, go over to the YouTube channel and just click on that playlist. A lot of them, the in the description, it shows you when the interview starts. So if you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter, @Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram @Daniel_current, and follow the show Instagram @Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. And follow Daniel on Threads @Daniel_current as well. And we hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball. Once again, see you then.
This conversation is over.